What's the most outrageously expensive thing you've seen in person? The Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime-in Steel at an only watch showing in London. All the big watch companies do a one-off for the charity auction. And Patek usually only do watches in precious metals. A grand complication in steel is truly a one-off. It sold for 31 million Swiss francs, close to 35 USD. I actually held it in my gloved hand. Whilst obviously nothing like that price, the most casually rich thing I came across amongst my friends, who are all varying degrees of working CL but are wealthy but nothing overtly ridiculous, also involved a Patek. I was traveling to the wedding of two friends. I live in the capital city but they were getting married in the countryside. The bride calls me to ask if I can pick up her wedding day watch for the groom as she'd forgotten to collect it. It still needed to be paid for, and she was trying to work out ways to transfer me cash instantly to pick it up, but the bank wouldn't do an instant transfer for the amount. Thinking she was overcomplicating things, I said, why don't I just pay for it on my credit card, then you can pay me back whenever. I joked as long as it doesn't cost more than 20 grand as that's my credit limit, haha. And she said okay. Don't worry about it. Mum can detour past and she'll pick it up. At the reception I clocked a brand new Patek on the groom's wrist. He's not even into watches. A comic book shop called Silver Snail used to have Amazing Spider-Man #1 on display and for sale. This was back in the mid-90s. Edit, the one on Queen Street. Not a comic book guy, but a story I read a decade ago always stuck with me. This one guy makes money by buying houses, gutting and redoing the insides, then selling it. One day he and his friend were ripping out drywall when they came across the first comic that had Superman in it. Action Comics 1. Close bracket. The guy who owned the building, and thus the comic found in the wall, was treating it reverently. The other guy wanted to hold it, and so it was handed over to him. But he started to spaz out and kept yanking the cover open and closed, going no way. That he tore the cover right off. It went from being worth a huge amount to rather much less. The CEO of my husband's company years back held a Christmas party at this house. At the time, the company was a startup and there was maybe 20 employees. He had original Picasso artwork on his walls. I have no idea how much they were actually worth, but I thought that was pretty cool. I got to see one. I studied in art school in a friend of a friend's home. I was in awe. So, like, you eat your Pop-Tarts in the same room as your inherited Picasso? My artsy butt went to the Picasso Museum at the Bellagio in Las Vegas. There was paintings, statues, pieces from his life. Probably the most expensive place I have ever been in. My sister used to work on super yachts. I'd go visit her every now and again and stay on the boat during off season in crew quarters. This was about €500 million worth of boat, and it was pretty damn fancy. It had GL butt flaring and staircases that turned opaque if you stood on them, so people couldn't look up your skirt. All the usual fancy boat shit like a spa and German movies that hadn't even been released at the cinema yet. I remember visiting Street Tropez after I graduated and just seeing all those super luxe yachts parked up. Crazy money just to have them moored up there, let alone to buy in the first place. I visited St. Tropez once, and I was kind of amazed that the town isn't even that pretty. A freshly drafted NFL rookie stayed at a hotel I worked at and partied a little too hard. When checking out he left over $100k in jewelry in the room. I was tasked with going and getting it and securing it till someone from his posse could come get it. I wore it for a few hours for fun. Heavy AF and so fucking shiny. A bracelet that was wider than the biggest watch covered in diamonds. And a chain that went past my sternum and probably 1/2 in thickness, also completely encrusted in diamonds. This is why poverty is such a huge issue with those type of people after they stop playing, because they've never had money, way overspend and then end up poor again. I saw something once where this former NFL player who became a CPA, I forget who, sits down with every rookie and talks about finances and making their money last. I worked security at an art museum and we exhibited this little Chinese teacup with a rooster on it. Little butt thing was worth over $36 million. Apparently there were only 4 in the whole world. I felt unsafe around it, like I'm not risking my life for this stupid cup. Did you ever learn the artist, age of the thing, context etc as to why it was so damn expensive? I attended a wedding that was rumored to cost well over $1 million. There was 2 venues. If I remember, there was 9+ member band flown in from New York City, another strings band during the ceremony, and a 3rd trumpet band that escorted the walk to the reception. An artist oil painted the reception live at the party. The food was incredible. Each table was over the top with guests having their own GL button engraved with their name to take home. They gave people dancing shoes you could take home. It was incredible, and probably the most expensive private event I will ever attend. I'm sure I'm missing some other details, but everything was over the top. I guess it's not entirely outrageous, but I went to a family-owned aquarium store a couple months ago to get some medicine for my guppies, and they were selling 1-year-old arowana fish for $6,000 each. I'm probably just ignorant when it comes to prices of exotic fish, but I was quite surprised considering they were surrounded by guppies and goldfish whose lives are worth approximately $2.50 each. There's a few reasons for their price. They are endangered and difficult to breed in captivity, which contributes heavily to the price. I have always assumed part of it is to prevent people who cannot afford to care for them properly from buying them. They are best off living in a 400+ gallon aquarium, which can easily cost over $5,000 to get one fully set up. They also eat voraciously, grow large and live for up to 15 years. A lot of knowledge and money to take care of them, while guppies can be well cared for in a 10-gallon tank and pre-made flake foods. That's my 2 cents. Goldfish, however, should not be cheap, since they grow huge unless stunted in a bowl. They are most appropriate for ponds or large aquariums, where they can live for a very long time as well. Also, they can just casually flick themselves and break their backs. Twits. So you could potentially pay a few thousand for a fish that then the next week is stuck in a permanent bend. Outside of the crown jewels and art museums, I went to Harrods and saw a chandelier worth $50,000. I spotted a gold toilet brush for $1,000, a grand for a king bog brush. In Aspen, Co. a few years back, in a small antique store, we walk in, and the guy working there never even acknowledges us while he's casually chatting on his phone. I see a carved wood eagle sculpture about 2 feet tall and 1 foot wide. I flip over the price tag, $125,000. I laughed out, looked at my friend, and said this isn't our kind of store, and promptly left. Aspen is the weirdest place I've ever visited. I'll tell ya where. Someplace warm. A place where the beer flows like wine. Where beautiful women instinctively flock like the salmon of Capistrano. I'm talking about a little place called Aspen. I don't know, Lloyd. The French are assholes. I live in New York City and like to be a tourist sometimes. So my husband and I went to the 5th Avenue Tiffany's. I don't even wear jewelry, but I like shiny things and are very nice. Clearly bored sales associate let me try on a yellow diamond 2.5 carat engagement ring. For fun, I asked the price, and it was $65,000. I can't even imagine how rich you would have to be to have that as your engagement ring, and that be a normal thing. My wife and I were walking around the Vegas Strip and went into Caesar's Palace, just exploring. We were carrying those super tall colorful daiquiris from Fat Tuesday. Basically, we both looked like Cousin Eddie from Vegas Vacation. We wandered into an art gallery where they had a collection of sculptures of Cirque du Soleil performers by Richard McDonald. We were the only ones in there, so the board curator showed us around. So we are walking around, very shit-faced, sipping on daiquiris and saying very interesting. And we just bought a house for that much. Apostrophe. I love the bookstore in the Venetian, or the one next to it. Has some amazing first edition books you'll never see anywhere else, and the price tag reflects it. F-35 and F-22, both at air shows. F-35s were parked and didn't fly, but I got to see the F-22 showing off at a different air show. The way I describe it is it's an IRL cheat code plane. It doesn't even look real. It still shocks me whenever I fly and I look through magazines and see ridiculously expensive shit. A gold pen $4 plus that you can sign your death bills with. A Rolex deep sea dweller worth around $14,600. that my dad gifted to his dad. His dad didn't like the watch, so didn't wear it. And then my uncle decided to get it fixed using its warranty, and now wears it. I shook Bill Gates' hand in 8th grade. He visited our school to make a donation to our district. Haven't came across anything more expensive since then. Went to Disney World a few years back and got a GL bud slipper from Aribus Brothers. One of the items they had was a dual replica of the castle. It costs more than $30,000. And don't get me wrong, the thing looked wicked. But I'm not spending more on a decorative piece that will live behind glass for my own sanity than I spent on my car. $37,500. It's limited edition. It's on my list of things I would buy if I had stupid amounts of money, just for the novelty. That's a third of the total cost of my current home lol, and more than I make myself in a year. I ducking love that GL budget. I have a couple really nice pieces I've bought myself over the years. It just went up in price. It's now $49,500. They sold some recently, so the scarcity caused a price increase. Back in the day I had to escort a Tulip Ego Diamond laptop prototype to a trade show, set it up in the booth, and ensure its return to the office, personally. I went to a Patek Philippe exhibit in New York City. They are among the top high watch brands, with watches that go for tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some go well over the $1 million mark. They are stunning pieces of art and machinery. When I told my mom where I was going, she asked if I was going to buy one. Watches aren't my mom's thing, so it's not like she knew the brand. I had to rein my laughter in hard before telling her that the cheapest watch that might possibly be there was more expensive than any car anyone in our family had ever bought. Nope, I was only going so I could do an AAH over amazing timepieces. I did bring home their info/display catalog that was made for the exhibit. It's basically a soft cover coffee table book of exquisite watches. If I ever win the lottery, I'd love to get one. Reminds me of the pilot of Succession. Tom gives a Patek Philippe to Logan and says something like it's very accurate at telling you how rich you are. Apostrophe. A solid 60 pure gold coins that were in a small chest in a museum. The worth was $246k US. A GL butter for Air Brandy in a Swarovski crystal glass. Apparently you can keep the GL butter after. It was 10k. I play Magic the Gathering. My decks aren't expensive, but they are not cheap either. Normally around $400 to $700. Then I played against a guy who had a deck worth around $29,000. Crazy thing is that this was his first deck, and he bought all of the cards recently. He didn't even play that often either. So imagine dropping almost 30 grand on something that you lose maybe once or twice a month. At big events, there are people with their decks in a briefcase, cuffed to their wrist. I've seen graded Power 9 in person. Not that it is super expensive comparatively to other things in this thread, but it is crazy to think about how much a piece of cardboard is worth. I've only ever seen one of the Power 9 in person. A friend of mine has been playing Magic since beta and opened a Black Lotus way back when. He still has it. Dubai Gold Salk. People dropping 20k just like that. Last year I went to Florida. At one point, we went to the Kennedy Space Center. I was in the gift shop, and, if I remember correctly, there was a chunk at a meteorite selling for $12,000. Flew into France and saw a Bugatti Veyron at a nearby petrol station. The owner was surrounded by people trying to take photos of it. One of my weirdest experiences was driving in a part of New Jersey that was about as middle CL but cold B, and watching a bright yellow Lamborghini Countach in front of me pull into a Walmart parking lot. I felt like I had witnessed something that had never happened before in history. Lol, it's quite funny and perplexing when you realize that even rich people do banal stuff like go shopping. I'm sure many also have private chefs and people to shop for them, but many rich people, I assume, also like to live a normalish life. I had a friend who lived in Chelsea, came from money, and was rich himself, and he still shopped at Tesco. I saw a lady show up to Walmart with a McLaren, wearing a 20k outfit. A 100k person. The best thing is she came to buy lotion. Reminds me of when saw a Lambo parked outside a Home Depot. I thought, what's this guy buying? A single extension cord? Apostrophe. I used to run a community pool, and we had one of the guys who swam on Michael Phelps relays in the Olympics come in to run a clinic. He just casually left his gold and silver medals in an office with a bunch of teenagers when he went out for a smoke. Olympic medalist smokes. Weird. You would be shocked at the amount of top world CL butt athletes smoke. A $500 aluminum Christmas tree that a friend owned. I have a feeling this tree really got to you. It fucked his wife. I saw a second-hand university textbook once. I actually bought a brand new university textbook once. Needless to say, I eventually dropped out because I couldn't afford my tuition for the next year. I went back to college when I was 34. Back in the 90s, when I first went, textbooks were pricey, but not outrageous. I just about rage quit college in 2010 when I paid $150 for a duck English leaf pages without a ducking binder to put them in. Goddamn scam. The Air and Space Museum outside Washington, D.C. has some spacecraft and airplanes that I presume are worth millions. Great museum. I recommend everyone check it out when it's allowed again. Fruits in Japan. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.